very interested in how girls and women have been targeted differently throughout the course of this conflict and have suffered consequences differently of this conflict.
Differently than men?
Than men. Where boys were abducted and forced to fight, girls were abducted at a young age and forced to become sexual slaves. Many of them were, repeatedly raped by senior commanders for over an extended period of 10 years. And in almost any culture, that is an extreme taboo, that the consequences are never borne on the rapist necessarily, but on the woman who has been raped. So what we saw was a lot of the girls and the women who came out of captivity after almost a decade were shunned and marginalized within their communities, even more so than the boys and men who came out, because of this association that they had been contaminated, and because many of them also came back with children born of those rape. And being marginalized in their community, they were not able to remarry. And one of the singular most protection mechanisms for women in Northern Uganda is marriage, right? You have, of course, men who have access to income because they're, out there in the productive force, and they also provide the physical protection to women. So you had whole castes of women who are trying to raise these children, are marginalized, unable to marry, and are therefore socially and economically vulnerable to exploitation. A lot of the girls we found were being propositioned by some of the senior commanders who had come out of the bush to join them again, and asking themselves, well, I can live like this in extreme poverty and being shunned by the community, or I can go live with the senior commander and at least get some. Now, that's not justice. That's not really a choice either. Or you found a lot of the girls, in order to make ends meet, were going and working for just pennies, or sometimes even nothing, on large agricultural tracts of land. So they were doing the digging. And those tracts of land were owned by high-level Ugandan army officials, or, again, by senior-level LRA commanders who had come out of the bush. So they were being exploited all over again, and there was very little attention to this issue in Northern Uganda. And we tried to do a lot of advocacy around that to change the situation. But I've been, to be honest, disappointed with the results.